there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money fast. There's something wrong with wanting to make money easy.
One of the first questions I wanted to ask you is what made you say yes?
I often get asked for interviews, and one thing I'm always looking for is an authentic interview where I can learn enough about myself as much as the listener learns about myself as well.
Right.
So I think that made me say yes, and also the conversational style of reaching out was very different, very, very unique. So yes, that's what made me say yes.
All right, I appreciate that. I hope you have a great time today. I observed that you're an angel investor at 5 different firms. And at such a young age, how did you even get started in the game? How did you generate that initial corpus of yours to get some skin in the game?
I look at angel investing in 2 ways, right? Number one is what have you done that you can add strategic value to the company? And secondly, why are you angel investing, right? What you see on my LinkedIn profile is actually syndicates I'm a part of, which means that we co-invest together and de-risk deals in a way that I am investing really small ticket amounts. It's usually between 5 and 10 lakh, though there are certain syndicates that allow you to invest as low as 2.5 lakh rupees. So IPV, AngelList India, etc. allow you to invest very small amounts. Small given that it's a startup, 2.5 lakhs is not small by any means. So that's one part of things. The second is that when I was in school, I tried building ventures. When I was in college, I tried building ventures. And then when I was 21, we actually raised the first of its kind impact investing fund at an undergrad level in America, where we raised $500,000. And the best part was that we raised this money without giving out any money. So it was purely educational money flowing in. It's a very hard pitch, right? Pitching to an investor that give me money, but you won't get any returns. That was probably the hardest pitching I've done at that time. And after coming back to India, I had sort of some savings from my time of working in America at Goldman Sachs. So that was one part of things. Secondly, I was doing some freelance work, so I had some side income coming from there. And thirdly, I am running my own enterprise right now, which generates some cash flow. So angel investing is one part of my investment portfolio to diversify things, to learn more, to learn incredible things, meet incredible people, etc. It's been going fantastic, though I would say I'm very, very young to the game, and I have had no exit so far. So I'm just an investor. I've not become an angel yet, but hopefully soon.
That's amazing, and that's a phenomenal story. Like brick by brick, you built onto your corpus. I feel like people always feel like they need to have huge funds to even get started in the investing game. So, apart from investing into startups and stuff, what else have you been interested in?
For sure. So maybe like if you're going down into investing, I can quickly break down how I look at it, right? So investing for me in general is something that I'm doing all the time. It's not just with my money, but it's with my time, it's with my relationships, with my health. Every part of my life, I consider it an investment. And even when I'm buying things, I'm looking at it from an investor standpoint, though that can be a little extreme for some people, but I studied finance in college. I have read and understood the history of money. So I understand that you can't just be an investor in the stock market and not invest wisely with the shirt you're wearing, or the technology you're using, or the people you're meeting, etc. So investing is happening all the time. I think your question is more to do with the finance side of things. So I'll quickly touch on that. When it comes to finance, I'm breaking down investing in 5 or 6 buckets. So the first is very basic passive investing, which is either through gold or buying some commodity like it, like maybe a debt mutual fund. So that's a very small, I would say 10-15% of asset allocation is wrapped up out there. The other 20-30% is in what I would say passive income strategies, like index investing or a Nifty 100 investing, wherein I'm not doing any work. I'm simply investing in the market going up.
Right.
The third, which is about 25-30%. The third bucket is actually direct equity investing, wherein I'm no expert, right? So I'm just trying to find out big macro trends and investing in large cap blue chip companies. These are not recommendations, but an example might be an HDFC Bank or a TCS, which I know in the long run will do well. And I'm not looking to generate any astronomical return. This is about 20% as well. The fourth bucket is what is fun, and I use something called small case to invest, wherein I invest in interesting thematic baskets. and you can really go down into different kinds of themes. I invest in something called dividend aristocrats, electric mobility, etc., etc. So themes I'm passionate about. That's about 20% as well. Then I do some crypto investing, wherein you can invest directly in crypto. You can lease out your crypto and earn interest on it. I do that through Vested and
Like staking?
CoinBCX.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the most fun aspect is angel investing, which is my risk tolerant money, wherein I am fine losing all this money tomorrow. But what I'm not fine is when I'm investing, I should learn a ton about the founder, the space they're operating in, the energy that they have, which is very, very like magnanimous in many ways. So that's how I look at my investing portfolio. Recently, I just added Grip Invest, which is an alternative investing platform which allows you to do lease-based investing. So there are so many platforms today that trying to explore most and building like a balanced portfolio that helps me sleep at night.
That's amazing. And did you've been investing into crypto. Did you ever want to dive into NFTs?
So, it's interesting. Like I wrote this tweet a few, like maybe a month ago, that the worst kind of investment strategy is investing because of FOMO, right?
Yeah.
And like
True.
being a finance student, I'm a Marwadi. So like the Marwadi community is known like, to be very money minded or to understand money, etc., etc. I have a lot of friends who are in it for the quick buck. Like, they want to double their money in 1 year. And I very well stay away from that. I am a student of compounding. Warren Buffett is like a huge, mentor of mine. He doesn't know me, but I've studied him enough that he's a mentor. So I have explored NFTs. I've read about it, spoken to people. But the current, FOMO style investing in NFTs is not suited to my appetite yet. But I look at investing directly in startups in a similar manner. That it's equally fun, equally risky, but it's a lot more rational. Though startup investing is not at all rational. And even with cryptos, right? I typically invest in large cap cryptos which have shown some stability, have good backers and are somewhat stable, though again crypto is not stable. So that's how I have not invested in NFTs, though I've explored and I have friends building interesting projects in the same.
Amazing. Yeah, from what I've understood about NFTs, I see them as exactly like startups, right? Like if a project has 10,000 items and you hold an NFT, that's almost like you being a shareholder in that company. So a lot of like 98% projects are going to fail because people are in it for the quick buck, right? Like that's why you see a projects cashing in and cashing out, rug pulling and stuff. But there are very, very few projects who see this as like a 5-year, 10-year game. Like you said, the amazing thing about investing in startup is you also have a mindset that I'm only putting in money I can afford to lose. And that's exactly the mindset when you're investing in NFTs and stuff. So I hope you do find some really interesting project to dive in, because that is definitely, I feel like, where the world is heading.
I have a strong belief that you can't win alone. And if you want to get to the top, you have to work with people. And I always like being the dumbest person in the room, right? Like I have no problem saying that, because when you're the dumbest person in the room, you're actually the smartest person in the room, right?
Yeah.
Like it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So like I always tell people who have an expertise about a particular subject is, if you know something about NFTs that you think I should be reading, checking out, please do share. And I'm sure we'll share a lot of knowledge in time to come and help each other grow as people.
I would love to. Yeah, I dive into the space last year in August. I'm a huge Gary Vee. I'm a big Gary Vee disciple, and every morning I used to cycle. I started listening on this podcast about NFTs is a big thing, and he's a person who's always been very historically correct about the internet. Right? He's a person whose intuitions you can trust, and he's not in it for the quick money. His intentions are always in the right place. So for him to talk about something and show so much conviction, passion to it, I knew I could bet on him. So that's when I started diving into the space, and a lot of people I look up to were also diving into the space. And this was the time when, I don't know if you've heard about this project which is called Bored Ape Yacht Club. At that time,
of course I have.
Bored Ape Yacht Club's floor price was 0.6 ETH. It was just about to get started minting, and right now it's sitting at 155 ETH, right? So we were all in it in the early days. Not that I hold one, but I couldn't comprehend, what is it about? And they don't even look cute, it's not even the art aspect which is interesting. But who knew what it could lead to? But I think that's when I dove into the space, and I run a podcast, And my 28th guest happened to be a person who was just starting her Web3 startup, which was, for women, run by women, because tech in general is such a male dominated space. So she wanted to educate females to just make sure that they are not intimidated by the Web3 jargon. They once they understand this space, only that is when they can leverage the space. So since then I've been a collector. I've been working with this Web3 startup which is based out of New York and stuff. So I would love to dive into a deep dive conversation about NFTs with you, and I'm going to send you some YouTube channels and articles and stuff that will help you properly educate you. And we're super in the early days, so don't even worry about it.
For sure, I would love that. And it's cool that you mentioned Gary Vee, right? So Gary Vee is an interesting marketing and business icon.
Yeah.
Some people find him cringe, but one of the coolest parts about Gary Vee is that he is not afraid to reinvent himself, which is so hard when you reach a following, right? That because when he says, when he goes out on the internet and says NFT is the next big thing, he has 1 million people following him. And if it's not, they tell him you are wrong. But he doesn't mind being wrong. And I think when you are wrong 9 times, right, you are right 90 times. So it just increases your probability when you take objective guesses and you educate yourself, surround yourself with amazing people. So looking forward to getting those resources and doing a deep dive in this space, and hopefully collecting and investing in this space now as another alternative asset.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just looked at, I know NFTs are a technology, it's essentially a digital asset, but how a lot of collectors are looking at it is just alternative investment, with inflation and so many things around the block. People want, 100x returns on their money, but also they're completely okay with it all going to zero. It's high risk, high reward. But until you buy your first one, you'll never learn how to interact with it. And until you learn how to interact with it, you'll never be able to leverage that technology 5 years or 10 years down the line. And like we say, like how everyone has a social media handle, 10 years from now, everyone's going to have an NFT. So if you're one of those early people who know how to kind of interact with it, you can definitely capitalize on exactly where the world is heading.
I so agree on that, Devika. And one more point that I might add, it's from this book, Psychology of Money, which I highly recommend to almost any person who is investing, right? It's a very intro to finance kind of book, but it's beautiful. And this one secret that Morgan Housel is do what helps you sleep at night. And just this morning, I was talking to a banking professional who started investing in the early 1990s. And that time he had bought he was telling me this morning, some Suzuki company for $17, and it went to like $250. And he was just in school at that time, made big money, etc. But what happens then is you might, if you don't know why you're buying something, you don't know when to cash out, which becomes super hard, right? Because it's easy to find an Asian Paints, but when Asian Paints becomes 2x, can you stay invested for the 100x journey? And I think same with NFTs, crypto, etc. That if you understand the technology and really believe in it, you can book some profit, of course, but can you stay in it and ride that 10x, 50x, 100x wave where true wealth creation happens? Because as humans, we tend to book profits really quick, but take time to book losses. If something goes up 10%, we're like, oh wow, it's up 10%. But if something goes down 50%, we have a feeling, oh, it'll come back to neutral.
100%.
And I think anybody investing, right, if they can understand money, savings, investment, and psychology behind financial discipline, and understand compounding as well, they're in it for the long run, and that's where true wealth creation will happen. Also, are we recording right now or not yet?
Yes, I use this QuickTime screen recorder that has a much better quality instead of Zoom. So it's recording on screen time.
Cool. I'm glad about that.
Of course. And it's really funny you say that. I had to learn this the really hard way. It's not about picking up the right project or picking up the right company to invest in. It is also knowing the exact right time to cash out. To tell you a funny story, one of my 5th NFTs I ended up buying in a partnership with my friends. And right before my eyes, it went from 0.06 to about 3.5 lakh in a matter of 12 hours, right? All of us chipped in our money, ended up buying that project. In the next 12 hours, that project was worth 22 lakhs. What we thought was, oh my God, this is exponential and something that can do so well. We could see it going to how CryptoPunks did or how Bored Ape did. So in a right mind, no one knew that was the time to cash out. And just the night that we slept off, because NFT and Web3 space is like all over the world, right? Like it just never sleeps. One of the news came out in the middle of the night that the founder made some change in that it was a gaming NFT, it was an interactive NFT. So he made some like twist and rule in his game. And that floor price went from 7 ETH, which was about 22 lakhs in like late December, it went to 5 lakhs. So
Wow.
it's just the craziest and weirdest space. And this has happened to me twice where I've seen something go up, and when it goes up, you just can't sell, you know. Like you said, your psychology just can't comprehend. But when it goes down, you feel like, oh, we'll come back up. So it's not even knowing what project to buy, but it's also knowing like the exact time to cash out. So it's crazy.
Could not agree more. And I think, like, investing, I don't gamble, but I have played poker in college. And the moment I played poker, right, I remember texting my friend who's like this gambling guy who gave me tips, and he sent me the poker cheat sheet. There's like a 7, 8 one-page cheat sheet. And I told him that, more than the money or whatever, I learned so much about how I deal with money when I'm losing and when I'm winning.
Right.
And in many ways, right, in like investing, there is this saying, right, that there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money fast. There's something wrong with wanting to make money easy. So you could make money super fast by understanding NFTs, by doing a deep dive, as Gary Vee says, the 100-hour week, where you learn everything about that, or like a lot about that, and then you get into it.
Definitely.
Or you think that NFTs, oh wow, new asset class, I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm going to make money.
Right.
The smartest guy or girl in the room, I'm going to make money. And I think that's the worst mindset, because
Definitely.
there are always people who are doing similar things and who might game you as well. So I think losing money, making money, etc., teaches you so much about your own psychology and your own self, which is incredible.
I know. What would you say were some of the biggest learnings when you were investing into these startups for you as an investor, and also for you to identify an entrepreneurs that you were investing in?
So in terms of the entrepreneur, right, that's a very interesting question. There are 3 things that I think I look for in an entrepreneur. Number 1 is the entrepreneur should be interesting, right? Or as I might call it, exceptional in some part of life. It does not mean that they've gone to an IIT Bombay or a Harvard or whatever. It just means that they've done something to show me that they can beat the odds of life, because the odds of startup world is very similar, right? 90% of startups fail. So if you've come from a low income background and done well in college, it shows me that you can beat the odds when most people can't. So you're exceptional in that regard. So that's one aspect of it. The second is, I think today the amount of capital available far exceeds the quality of startups. So I understand that money today is no longer a differentiating factor, and I don't play it that way. And I'm investing such small amounts that many Tom, Dicks, and Harrys can do the same thing. So the thing that becomes important to me is, can I add some strategic value to the startup? Can I introduce the startup to some people who might add value in their business, or to strategic investors who have come to know in matter of time, and I keep introducing myself to more and more. That's the second part of the thing. And the third is, I have this framework of oxygen, aspirin, jewelry. And I like to filter startups in those 3 things, right? Oxygen is problems that will always be there and are real. You cannot survive without them.
Yeah.
Aspirin is what you sometimes need, but you don't need it every time. That's still a good space to be in. Jewelry is what you don't need but want. So I try, it's more qualitative than quantitative, but I try to watch out for the jewelry startups. So that's the third thing. Oxygen is hard to find. Aspirin, oxygen is generally a combination where the sweet spot is. And lastly is, with the amount of craziness happening in the Indian ecosystem about startups, right? 100 unicorns were born just 2 days ago.
Right.
It's crazy, right? So I try not to invest in pre-revenue startups unless and until I know the founder personally, and I know that they are born to change the world, which plenty of them are, or somebody who's very close to me and who I believe in wholeheartedly is telling me, Karan, this is a startup that I believe in. Here is why. You can have a conversation with the founder and let's invest together.
Right.
So typically avoid pre-revenue startups. In terms of what they give me, right, apart from the diversification, which is the least of my concerns right now, is the ability to see a founder or a startup go from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to N, and have a seat in the cockpit when they're doing that is incredible. The second thing is, like, one startup pitch generally lasts 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're paying attention for 15 minutes, you learn a ton about new spaces like ag tech, space tech, consumer tech, femtech. I'm only naming tech things, but you get to learn so much. Like recently, I was considering a protein bread startup, right? And I learned so much about protein and bread. And I studied nutrition in college along with finance. So that's a second thing. And thirdly, I think any investor or startup founder are very interesting people because they don't care a lot about the money. What they care more about is energy, passion, problems, etc. So in life, in my day-to-day job, I run a very boring business, which is cash flow positive. In my dream job, I get to meet with incredible people, invest in them, and see them go from one to end. And also, right now, personally, in our own company, I'm leading the process for the company to go public in the next 12 months. So it's a huge learning curve for me, talking to some incredible people, learning so much of the financial markets because I studied finance, but now thinking about an IPO and actually going and doing some things around it is a whole another field altogether. So that's another value add about how can you strategically fundraise. And do you need to fundraise right now? For example, some founders come and tell me that I'm looking for 5 CR. But my first question is why? What will you do with it? Where will it get you? And oftentimes the answer is you don't need 5 CR, you need 50 lakh to get you to point B, and then you need 2.5 CR to get you to point C, and then you need 5 CR. So don't dilute equity just to get the tag of I'm a VC funded, angel funded startup, because getting funding is not the goal. Making money, solving a problem is the goal. So I know I answered your questions in many different areas, but that's my brief thoughts around startup investing.
No, that was amazing. I loved your analogy of, oxygen, aspirin, and jewelry, because I feel like a lot of people want to start a business just to make money or just to have that tag of being an entrepreneur. But the basics of business is starting a business to solve a problem. And like you said, how people really brainstorming, how is it that I can solve a problem? And the money and the fame and all the accolades that come with it would be a byproduct of it. And as an investor, I can't imagine how amazing it is to see someone grow and be a part of their entire journey, to foster talent. I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I can't imagine how fulfilling it must feel.
Devika, like you put it so well, it is extremely fulfilling. But one thing I'll warn any listener, right, listening to it, is like startup investing is a lot like a drug. Because the more you are around incredible startups, the more you hear pitches, the more you want to invest. And you only have a limited amount of scope or money. Like at least I'm 24 right now, I just turned 24. I only have a limited capital pool which I can invest. And like compared to equity, I feel startup investing is just so much more attractive, fun, energetic, right? That if you're thinking about it, just go in it with discipline. Take your time with it, learn about the space, and please don't take part in FOMO investing, especially in startups, because the ticket size is so much bigger, it's so much less liquid, and all your money could go poof, like in a matter of few months. So it's very important to have that in mind as well, as much as it is fulfilling.
Right. I think that's definitely a very important point to note. And I want to ask you, you've interacted with so many entrepreneurs, and I'm sure your expectations were fulfilled by how someone executed versus there were some people you really believed in and they were just not executors. Maybe the idea was great, but they just did not know how to run it. What do you think are early signs in a person where you feel like this is exactly what a successful entrepreneur looks like?
That's a tough question, right? Because I don't think that there is any short formula. But just brainstorming aloud, if I could think of 3 or 4 things, right, that I really love in entrepreneurs is, number one, well done is better than not done. So I'm not a big fan of perfectionism. So I really want entrepreneurs to be fast, quick, fail. There's this Denzel Washington saying, right? Fail fast, fail often, but keep failing forward, because 1%, if you can increase by 1% every day, compounding will do the rest. Right? It's magical. So not being a perfectionist and being fast is one thing that I really look for. The second thing is using all your social capital and really being resourceful, or as Indians might call it, the jugaad mindset, right? Wherein have you done everything that you can do to get this going? For example, we just started a co-working space, right, in Calcutta. And now to fill that co-working space up, I'll message every friend of mine. I'll message every employee of mine. I'll go on other startups. I'll go on other co-working spaces, websites. I'll call every client that exists. I won't personally do it, but my team will do it.
Yeah.
So that's when, before we spend any marketing dollars on Instagram ads, Facebook, etc., have you done everything in your capacity, with obviously time being an opportunity cost, to get the work done? So that resourceful mindset is what I really look for. And the third is true passion for the problem, right? Because I've met so many founders who I know have pitched me one thing a year ago, but if I talk to them 6 months later, they're pitching me something very different. So they've pivoted, but they're still in the same space. So if they're passionate about that space, that problem, they will find multiple ways to solve it and multiple ways to monetize for it. So that's a quick third. And fourth is an incredible team. Like, as I mentioned earlier, that you cannot get to the top alone. And if you aren't coachable, like if you aren't open to feedback, if you aren't surrounding yourself with an incredible team, advisors, feedback loops, customers, etc., it's very hard to like go up, because you'll keep moving in that echo chamber. So team, resourcefulness, perfection, passion for market are some of the things I think great startup founders really do. And in general, like, I also talk to a lot of business people who run boring businesses like me. Valuing your time and living a decentralized life is super important, because after a point in time, right, to get scale, number one, you have to value your time. You have to have short meetings. Emails have to be crisp, short. And secondly, you have to get a team in place who think like entrepreneurs and can grow your business for you. And you give them skin in the game if they're damn good. So that's two other things: valuing time and delegating, I think, which great founders also do after they reach a certain scale.
Thank you so much for such a detailed answer. I think I keep on pursuing that question because listening a lot to Gary Vee, he always says that, not everyone is an entrepreneur. Some people are just meant to be like amazing executives, a number 4 at Facebook, or number 3 at, Snapchat or whatever. And I always thought to myself, I'm not sure, like I love business, I love money, I also got into investing, but I was never sure if I'm an entrepreneur. And now that I'm in a phase in my life when I'm looking for a new job and stuff, I have a lot of questions that I'm asking, am I someone, who can pursue an idea and take it all the way? Or should I still look at my 20s as my training ground, where I keep work with great people, work in great teams, and really sharpen myself to a point in my late 20s, early 30s, I can start a business. So I always what would you think? How do you see it, since you're almost the same age?
This is such an interesting question. And I think so many young people, right, in the 20 to 25, 30 bracket are thinking about this, especially with entrepreneurship becoming a lot more democratized, not meaning easy, but a lot more accessible, with funding becoming easier, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., allowing you to reach out to anybody and everybody and get them on your team as advisors, etc. So one thing I always keep in mind, right, whenever trying to build something, anything, is that an idea is never complete. It is always being iterated. So the most important thing is to start, because you will iterate over time. So a lot of my friends tell me, for example, recently I have a friend who's a full-time trader, and he has some good advice around investing, etc., etc. So he told me that I want to start a newsletter, or some kind of an Instagram page where I give a short finance and entertainment reels to create a community and advisors, so that after some time, when I start a full-time startup in this space, I have a community who already believes in me. And I said, go home today, record 5 pieces of content. You have enough for 1 week, and post. That's how you start. Don't think about the name, the logo, all that. So that'll happen over time. So bottom line is, if you have an idea or a space you're passionate about and an inkling of how that might formulate, I would just say start. Take 30 minutes out, write on a piece of paper 10 steps to get stuff done, and just keep taking stuff out. And over time, I guarantee that you will find your way. And I'm finding my way as well. And the journey is the destination. So we'll never be there, but we'll keep iterating and figuring it out.
I appreciate that answer. On that note, I would like to ask you, what would you say is your story as a person, from when you were born to bred today?
Wow, I've never been asked that question, but I love that question. So really short, I would say that I've been born in a very simple family, which is very entrepreneurial, very risk-taking, etc. And when I was young, I saw my family go through ups, but a lot more downs. And that gave me a lot of perspective as a person. And if I had to sum up my being in a nutshell, I would say that I am not an exceptional human being. I'm a very average person who wants to be exceptional and is very young, very curious, and very competitive. And I'm not afraid of being who I am all the time. So that's who I am, what my story is. And one thing that I also want to do in time to come is I'm very conscious that having talking to you right now, having internet, a water bottle, clothes, etc., I know that I'm in that cream of India, which has access to the basics of life. And I know my story will be that in 20, 30 years to come, should impact a million, if not a billion lives in this country and beyond. So that's what the story will be. So predicting the future a little here.
That's amazing. Super proud of that. And like you said, your family situation really gave you a lot of perspective, and that is a lot of where your foundation comes from. There's this question we ask everyone on the podcast is, are you happy?
So I'm extremely happy, and I'll tell you three reasons why, right? My parents are alive, they've given me birth, and I get to spend time with people who gave me birth. They are my God. I have not seen God, but they gave me birth, so they are my God. Second is I'm healthy. I love spending time in nature, traveling, reading, meditating, yoga, animal flow, all that good stuff. So I'm healthy. And third is I get to build stuff and talk to people like you and fill myself with energy, which I can share with the world. So I'm full of happiness, but I'm not satisfied. And I never will be satisfied. Reason being that I'll always be expecting and wanting more of myself. But in the present moment, I'm happy.
I'm super happy to hear that. And like you said, going through your bio and even going through your LinkedIn, there's so many achievements that you've accomplished, whether it was in school, college, or, even in your entrepreneurial journey. What would you say are some of your tips to investing your time really, really wisely?
So first tip would be that tracking your time. So I use the Google Calendar to track almost every part of my life, and that really gives you perspective as to where you're spending your time, social media, Netflix, etc., etc. The second thing would be you are in many ways the average of the five people you surround yourself with. So if you're average, like I remember in college, right, somebody told me that, oh, like you're doing so much in life. And I told them back that, you should meet my friend, this guy, who is killing it right now. He's doing 10 times more than me. Yeah. So that's surrounding yourself with more people, not to compare, but to get inspiration and to drive yourself forward. And thirdly is if you can live every day, right? And like say every day I wake up and I have one goal. This is one thing I want to do today. As long as I do it, my day is successful. And if I can repeat that for 365 days, I have achieved 365 things in 1 year. And to be honest, that leads to such compounding that success is no metric to define you or limit you. However, one point I want to highlight, right, is for any successful people, a person I know, and I don't consider myself successful, and I never will be because I'll always be in a growth mindset or beginner mindset, is they have failed a lot more than they have succeeded, but they don't highlight their failures enough. But if you knew them personally, they've gone through that grind. So if you are failing at any part or you're feeling not okay, it's completely fine. Social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. is life with a filter. Nobody shares their moments of self-doubt, failures, depressions as much as they share their failures. And I too have failed a lot more than I've succeeded. And I'm sure I will keep failing as much as I succeed, if not more. So that's my 3 tips on how students might make the most of the time. And also, one last thing I might add, Devika, is ask for help. The student card is a lottery ticket. You can reach out to the most incredible people in the world and simply say, I'm a student. Can you give me 10 minutes of your time? Here is why. And here is why, how I might give that forward. Right. And most people who are conscious, successful, might not say no if you cold email or cold reach out to them properly. So the student card is a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I recently had this guest on my podcast, Adriana Coleman, who's an executive director as a chief diversity officer. And one of the biggest tips she gave me was, have a mentor. And I never understood the importance of having I thought, oh, I have so many mentors, like Gary, or, you said Warren Buffett. We learn to consume so much information, through YouTube and through reading books. But having an in real life mentor, who can really, kind of hold your hand through that journey is one of the very important aspects. So definitely, like you said, don't be until you ask, you don't get, right? So never be afraid to ask for help is definitely a point.
And Devika, I love that point. And how am I different differentiate is Gary Vee or Mr. Buffett is a mentor. But this mentor that this guest referred to, right? I personally call it my personal board of advisors. And it's a recent practice where I've started writing them an annual letter inspired by a friend of mine where they don't ask me for the update, but I send them an annual update as to what I've been up to in life, what is my favorite
Really?
song of the
That
year,
is so
favorite
cool.
movie, favorite place traveled, etc. And those who appreciate it do, those who don't. But they know for a fact that they are on my advisory board.
That is the coolest thing about that. That's definitely I would try and implement in my practice. That is so cool. Yeah. How many people do you have on your advisory board?
So I actually maintain a Google sheet where I keep adding people as much as I connect, and I don't tell them you're my advisor. I just send them that annual update, and they know, and I reach out to them on an like as needed
Right.
basis. But there is about 13, 14 people right now, and I keep adding, subtracting as time goes on. But I see no reason why you should limit yourself. But I do segregate in terms of business, life, family, relationships,
Yeah.
fitness, etc., etc.
That's awesome. And you're so articulate and well spoken. What is it, books? Is it you watching YouTube videos? Is it you like writing? What contributes to that?
So in terms of articulation, it's a very interesting story actually. That growing up, I think I had some amount of stage fright, and I went to a school, an all-boys school, a very old 200-year-old school, wherein debate was the best activity in the school. Like if you could debate, you were like the stud in school, right?
Yeah.
And I was in this house which had the debate captain, and I was my house captain, but this guy became school captain later on. So I remember in class 7, I was part of the debate team as a reserve, and like a fourth, fifth reserve. But when we were practicing the topic, I made one point, which he said, when the house opens up to give suggestions, you should go up and say. And I'm like, no, man, like, I'm too afraid right now.
Yeah.
But when the house opened up, we had a 1,000-seater audience or an auditorium. I was sitting somewhere in the back in my half pants. And I'm like, this is my chance. I have to go up and say something on stage. So I went up. The podium was much above my height, etc. And I stumbled a lot, but I made my point. And when I came back home, I remember calling my mom and telling her that, Mom, I went on in the Atmodya Bhavan, the stage in our school, made a point in front of 1,000 people. I said it nothing like I intended to. It was very bad, but I said it. And it gave me so much confidence, right? That the next time I said it again and again and again. And over time, I think practice has helped it just get better. So if somebody is trying to improve their communication skills, I would say number 1 is practice. And number 2 is just having that belief that if something came to your mind, it's not stupid because it came to your mind. And if something came to your mind and you're not saying it, that's being stupid. So I think that's the second thing that really helps. And I think reading, watching people speak, learning from people are definitely aspects that I've picked up on. I still tend to speak fairly quicker than I would like in a public setting, but I'm working on that, and I'm sure we'll get better in time to come.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask you, what does a day in the life look like for an executive director at Regaal Resources?
Day in the life is actually very active and lots happening. So I try to work out in the mornings. So I usually get up around 7:30. I get up, I drink water from a copper bottle. It has more minerals. It's just all extra stuff. But I drink 2 glasses of water. I actually then sit next to the sun and meditate for a few minutes. I listen to Jay Shetty on Calm. He has the Daily Jay, which is awesome. I love his voice. I try to stretch if I have time, and then begin a workout, usually an hour. And then I generally I'm changing, recording some content if I have the time, eating breakfast, and then to work. Work is fairly interesting because what I tell my team is 4 days a week I am fully in work, right? This is my number 1 priority, 4 to 5 days a week. But Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, depending on how the week is going, is when I take out time to pursue passion projects. Passion projects include, like, I'm currently volunteering at something called Social Venture Partners, which is an all India-wide engaged philanthropic organization. And I plan to build my own NGO now in time to come. I'm in process of writing a book about how to succeed in college. I'm starting to become a nutritionist. I'm saying finance, nutritionist.
Yeah.
So I love to travel, edit vlogs, all that stuff. So that's all my passion project time. That's on the weekends. But days regular, like 10 to 7 is when I'm usually working. I like to walk to work. and walk back, just because I'm a very active person by nature and I don't like sitting in one space. And then post work, I'm usually spending some time with family, eating a nice meal, listening to some podcasts, walking again. Like I do 10K steps every day. Not that that's a metric for living a healthy life. And then usually end the day by, like, with half an hour or 1 hour of reading, uh, going out with friends occasionally. I've reduced that over time as I'm pursuing more and more things. And that's how a typical day in the life is. Lots of meetings, lots of reading, lots of listening, lots of moving around. But it's pretty, like, there's no fixed routine that, this is what I do. And I like that lifestyle. Some people might like the routine lifestyle where they know exactly what they're doing. For example, when we initially connected, and I said that, this day doesn't work for me, I did 8 cities in 6 days. I was traveling. I slept in 8 beds in 6 days, which was interesting, right? So that's what a day in the life looks like right now.
That's very impressive, and that is very, very disciplined. I'm very curious to know, at such a young age, I'm sure you have your desires to hang out with friends, to like have that sort of a life. Do you ever feel like you're making sacrifices towards that end, or do you ever have internal battles of what if I have regrets if, I keep on saying no, whether it's to friendships or other aspects of one's life?
So when I answer this question, I'll give two quick analogies about, like, two people who I think are incredible right in their own right. So one is Michael Phelps. When Michael Phelps was breaking the world record, he went 5 years, that is close to 1700 days, without missing one single practice. Birthday, New Year, broken leg, does not matter. He went to practice, right? The second is Casey Neistat, the vlogger, right?
Yeah.
He recorded, I think, 1,000 days of daily vlogs without missing it. And it came to a point wherein, when he was sitting with his child, he was thinking about, what can my child do that I can record? And he says it in a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Now answering your actual question is, I strongly believe that to get anything meaningful in life, you have to give up something. If you could have everything, everybody would have everything, right?
Yeah.
However, the question arises that, is what you're getting more than what you're sacrificing? And is that your true calling? So for me, say that sleeping in early on a weekend, not drinking, getting up on a Saturday morning and hitting the gym is what fuels me and drives me. So I don't feel like I'm sacrificing. However, over time, I started believing in this equation. This is like a mantra for life. E equal to MC square, where E stands for energy, right? For me, everything is energy. Who I work with, who I talk to, what I eat, what I wear, etc. So any person who I'm getting a second coffee with, if they don't add or compound to my energy, I don't want to meet them. I'm okay saying no. And sometimes, I remember this started happening to me in college, right? And some friends would make a plan. And it's not that they don't add energy, it's just that I didn't have time at that moment. They would text me saying, hey, do you want to hang out? And I would just reply no. And they called me like, what's wrong with you? How can you just say no? I'm like, why would we waste time arguing about it and then me coming to a no rather than me just saying no? So I don't call it sacrifices because the amount of output or what I get in return is far higher, and I choose where to spend my energy. And I'm very conscious that time is the most limited commodity in the world, and I'm very protective of it unless and until it's a close friend or family for whom time has no bound. If you need help, and if I'm here, I can do whatever you need, without time being any bound metric.
That is very impressive. And that is something very important that people need to take into account, right? Your work ethic needs to match your ambition. And there's no right or wrong life, right? This is what you want to pursue. This is something that genuinely, makes you feel alive. So I'm super happy to hear that. And I remember saying a no to a lot of my friends or going out. And for the longest time I say, I don't need friends. I feel sometimes it can be a distraction. And I would really get bound by people this is your age, you'd be really distracted. So yeah, your company's really does make a difference, but it is without any denying, if you want something exceptional in life, you have to make exceptional efforts towards it, which means you definitely do have to cut down on certain things.
And Devika, one thing I think is, if one simply audits their time, right? You have 168 hours in a week. You spend, I think, 40 to 45 sleeping. A typical work week for a standard human being is 40 to 50 hours. You spend 20 hours eating, like bathroom, like in transit, etc., you still have around 60 hours, 70 hours left. Most people spend a good chunk of it today on social media, reading WhatsApp messages that have
Yeah.
no meaning, Netflix, YouTube, aimlessly thinking or whatnot.
Yeah.
If you could just figure out how you spend those 60 hours, right, and spend it in a more mindful, not constructive, mindful manner,
Yeah.
conscious of what you're doing, I think it can make the world of a difference. And you can actually go out with your friends, spend time with family, work out, read, run businesses, invest, and do all that stuff if you're simply mindful.
Yeah. I did this course by Ankur Walko, which was like time management. And I thought, what is, like, how can I do a course on time? I just did it because I love him. I was like, I'm sure he has something incredible to say. And that was the first time he actually practically spoke about time. About time was about like energy allocation. And that made so much sense to me. So what you just said right now, like, definitely puts all of that into context. Just to kind of switch up the topic, I'd love to ask you, what's your favorite kind of music?
So I actually love, like, it's a very non-typical answer for someone who's been brought up, like, for my friends, this is odd music. This is not what they go for. But I love Coke Studio. Like, that's like my go-to music. I enjoy sometimes spiritual centric music as well, like a Krishna Das or a Taj Dare Haram or a Kun Faya Kun is what wakes me up and gives me like, oh wow, like I'm connected right now to the higher being. So that's one kind. A second is also like I enjoy Coldplay and like some all-time favorites. And then I grew up in a Marwadi family with two cousins, first cousins. I have a younger brother as well. But both my first cousins, one was 6 years elder to me, one was my age. They both studied music in college, and they were brilliant at it, like brilliant at playing the piano. That was the instrument. So I also grew up listening to a lot of like very interesting old school style music from a band run by Zakir Hussain called Shakti, like a Beethoven, a Schubert, a Mozart. So that's some element still has stuck with me.
Yeah.
But music taste is very diverse. But and I also listen to rap when I'm working out sometimes, techno. So I'm very very okay with it. But my go-to is like music that connects me to like energy around me, to the higher being.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to ask you, so what's your take on the traditional education system versus the need of the market? I feel like people are coming out of colleges and they're not able to find the right jobs, or they're not fitting the skills set needed at the job, versus people who've not pursued college. You still need a degree to be able to get a job. So what's your perspective on it?
That's a loaded question, right? And we could talk about it for hours, but I'll just like try to sum it up in like maybe 1 minute of my perspective. And I have gone through my own education, of course, but then I have a younger brother, Krishna, who's 6.5 years younger to me. And because of the age gap, I am like his pseudo dad, and I have seen him go through the education system again, right? And what I've seen firsthand, Devika, is that education is what you make of it. There is no right or wrong. And in today's time, education has never been more accessible, cheaper, and expensive in both regards, and more easily available, more democratized. However, more than education, right, what I think is what needs to be taught in an Indian context is curiosity. Curiosity not just for like learning history, geography, etc., but curiosity for what it can do, like the applications, and then actually experiential curiosity. For example, if you're learning about geography, right, why not learn about the 5 rivers or whatever, 7 rivers, and actually go and see it on a camp trip? Incredible, right? And when you go there, right, enact some historic act that took place out there. Like, so you're combining history as well. So if education could be made in such a way that it sparks a child's curiosity, it's a big thing. The second thing is also, I think, education has a lot to do with your parents and your family, because you only spend 6-7 hours in school. The other waking hours is spending at home or with your friends. So if you have a family that pushes for education, it becomes a lot easier that way. Like, is your dinner table conversation sitting alone, watching IPL and eating food? Or is it sitting with your mom or your dad or your brother or whatever and talking about NFTs and anything else that might be interesting in the world? And third is like 3 aspects that I think are neglected completely from the Indian education system. And these are the 3 aspects I would make primary in the Indian education system is, as Naval Ravikant says, health, wealth, and relationships. Because at the end of the day, that's what makes up a human's life in most aspects of it.
That is incredible. And I think, yeah, man, I don't know if you know this fun fact that India has the largest youth population. So,
Wow.
what the youth end up doing here today is not just going to shape the country, but the world. So I feel like education system is so important, and I have a very controversial opinion on it, and my life journey has also been super controversial, keeping that in mind, which we will get to.
Okay,
But
for sure.
first, I want to ask you, what's your dream ambition or end goal?
That's something that I think about very often, and it's hard to quantify right now because the way the world is changing. Right, one thing I realized is I have to have shorter term goals. Like initially, when I was in college, right, I thought I'm gonna do this. When I was halfway through my college, I had a 5 year plan. When I came out of college, I have a 1 year plan, and now I have a 6 month plan. Right, so I think goals need to be shorter. The end goal for me personally, I'm going to give you a very broad, ambiguous sort of answer, is to generate a legacy that can run on itself and really impact people. For example, like as a human being, right, a lot of people might want the Balenciaga shoes or like whatever belt, whatever is the new in, I don't know, hat. I don't know what people want. Uh, I don't have too many needs and wants. Like I enjoy working out. I enjoy fresh food. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy meeting incredible people. I enjoy music and my family.
Yeah.
5 or 6 things. Everything else is extra to me, right? So if I create money, I want that money to create a lasting impact in society. And I think a very doable goal is to touch the lives of 1 million people. A very ambitious goal is to touch the lives of 1 billion people. How I'm going to do that, I don't know. A few ways I'm exploring is I'm not a content creator, neither do I want to be a full-time creator, but I'm exploring creation as an aspect of touching multiple lives with, say, a 30-second video. Writing a book is another way of touching multiple lives of people going to college in a very, very interesting part of their lives. Investing in startups is another way where they can create the tangible impact. Building my own company is another way of doing that. So these are 3, 4 ways I'm exploring right now. 5 years down the line, my mode might be different, but I don't think my eventual goal will be different. And on a more personal level, being happy, healthy, and having a good set of friends and my family being with me and growing with me is what is the goal on a more personal level.
That's amazing. And that is incredible. I'm so happy to hear that. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I really hope I know you will be able to do that. I just want to say it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. I love how humble, nice, kind you are. At the same time, you're ambitious, tenacious, and all of that shows. And thank you so much for giving me your time. And I want to ask you, now we come to the question, is there anything that you would like to ask me?
So number one is I would love to learn about your background and you mentioned about education, how this podcast started, and what are you doing right now?
So, this podcast started because of Gary Vee, and the reason is that I was really bullied in school, and that is when I lost a lot of my faith in the education system. And I wasn't bullied from the kids' side, but I was bullied by my teachers. So I knew that this is something I'm not gonna do. And Gary said the biggest ROI of going to a college is building a network. So I thought, how am I going to do that? And that's when I started the podcast to build my network. And one thing I understood, like people were going to college to get a job. And I knew that networking can get you indoors, degrees can't. So that is why the podcast was a very strategic decision to, build some kind of an in real life opportunity, which I was able to do after my 28th episode. I connected with Dana, who is my founder, who I'm working with. We work for a company it's a Web3 startup, like I mentioned. It's called Unblocked. And I work as a content strategist and a community manager for them. So I decide, how, I film videos, edit videos, produce videos, and then distribute it on different platforms. So we created some educational tutorials like how to buy your first NFT, or how to analyze an NFT project, or what are ENS or NFT domains and stuff like that. So that is like the educational content. Ironically, it's something I'm working towards. And it's just been an incredible journey, speaking with so many people. And I'm a big believer, like how diamonds are polished by other diamonds, people are polished by interacting with other people. So I thought podcast would be my school. All the questions I had in the world, I would find the right person and start asking them and document this entire journey. Because I wanted to tell people, like, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So I had not a friend, but a classmate who could not clear his class 11th exam. So the principal failed him and told him, he's a worthless piece of shit and whatnot. And, like you said, family has a huge influence on how you perceive education. I think his father also must have told him that, you're very hopeless and you have no future. And he ended back home and he took his life. And it was just something that really left an impact on me. And I did not want to just, that was the time I knew I wanted to create my wealth, pursue my education without the formal education system. And that is when I started documenting this entire journey, kind of wanted to leave a blueprint for the youth, on how it's done. I didn't want to say like, oh, fuck formal education, but I wanted to be like, okay, what's the alternative? And I wanted to kind of build that alternative, like hand by hand. So, when my interaction goes with someone amazingly, I'm always looking for in real life opportunities. So with Unblocked, since it's a company based in New York and it requires a lot of visa sponsorship and stuff, I'm working with them as a freelancer. So I'm still like looking for, a full-time job. And in India, obviously, I was in Bombay for the longest time. And because I've been in the NFT space and I've been creating a lot of content, recently I was invited to be a panelist at Soho House in Bombay to give a talk in women in Web3 and stuff. So they were asking, what
Fantastic.
product or service I offer. And I was like, I have no product and service. But I've been doing like NFT consultation for my friends on the side. I'm like, all right, like I'll just help you out. And I take a percentage or like a cut from the profits or something like that. So that's just like kind of been, an elaborate story on how all this has been unfolding.
Wow. Devika, I don't want to raise my hand and say you go, but that is such an incredible. I'm not sure if this is on video, but if it is, yes, let's keep going.
Thank you.
That's such an incredible journey, and it's so inspiring. And I wish I could interview you and listen to your journey, because I was not expecting that answer. So expect the unexpected and never judge a book by its cover, right? So that's brilliant. Also, so are you currently based out of Bombay?
I was in Bombay for 40 days, but now the company I'm working with Unblocked, we were just about to go in the initial stages of fundraising and stuff, but my founder is about to deliver a baby any day. So we've cut back on fundraising. So all the founding members are now going to get paid in equity instead of their monthly, like the salaries we would get. So that's why I had to move back, to my hometown, which is in Lucknow. And now I'm ferociously like looking for a job to be able to establish my finances. So
Fantastic. Just this, are we on record, by the way, right now?
yes, but it's all good. Like, we can edit stuff, so don't worry about it.
No. Just this more like, so I'm trying to outsource some of the content part of things in terms of editing and whatnot. I'm no one in the creator space, right? I barely have any following, but I'm doing a lot of interesting things in life.
Definitely.
For a 24-year-old guy who's just returned from the US, was there for 4 years working for one in top tier companies, etc.
Yeah.
So I feel that, and I'm like an information whore. Like I consume maybe like I don't know how much information in one day, and I'm documenting a lot of it. But the content production part of things takes a huge toll. So recently I reached out to a friend of mine who I co-invest with together and asked him for advice, like, how do I outsource it? But I'm no one. So will someone help me out? Why will they help me out, etc. And he told me that there are 3 options. Either you hire interns and they would love to do it and I'm willing to pay, right? Second was you hire an agency, or third is you build a team. So like long term, the team sounds so interesting because it allows you to actually scale things up, build an agency, I understand selling, business, operating at scale. I have built stuff from 0 to 1, etc. So it's really cool that you are in this super niche space as a woman entrepreneur. And I think India needs so much more of people like you. And if not people like you, you can inspire so many people who are young, gone through similar things, which plenty of them do, and are not so sure about what to do next. So I really hope that you keep creating, growing, and becoming incredibly successful. And if I can ever be of assistance, or if you think we can work together in something, I'm always open to opportunities to work with awesome, incredible people.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your kind words. I am actually like, for your content thing, where are you looking to produce content? Is it YouTube? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? What do you have in mind?
So I'll give you a quick context, right, about how this started. So 2021 April, I like randomly I was giving a lot of gyan to my friends, and they're like, "Man, why don't you put this on a reel? It's exploding right now." So I just created a reel, and I created a couple, and a few of them actually did super well. Like I had 1,000 followers, but the reel got like 500,000 hits and whatnot. So I started creating whenever I felt like it. There was no system, but I was talking a lot in schools, colleges, corporates. Like I've probably given now 75 plus talks, but the content came naturally. I was not forcing it out that, I have to create 10 pieces a day, etc. Whatever people do nowadays.
Yeah.
But in January 2022 is when I decided that, I'm going to put a system around it because I'm investing time. So might as well be efficient.
Yeah.
And let's aim to create this much content and see where things go. However, as life got busier, it becomes inorganic.
Yeah.
So right now I'm looking to create about 5 to 7 reels a week. So 1 reel a day, 1 LinkedIn post a day, and 2 tweets a day and 1 Twitter thread a week,
Right.
plus a YouTube video every 2 months. And I have been doing about 70% of this by myself. I'm not sure if you've seen anything, but it's very organic. Like I'll just take out my phone,
Yeah.
I'll record and I'll upload it. Like I'll not
Yeah.
think twice as to like, comment, share, etc., etc. I'm just uploading because I think it's valuable. If one person sends it to someone else, my job is done.
Yeah.
But now, with time, I'm investing time into it, and I want to scale things up. Wherein, if that is the aim, right, to impact people, build a brand, build a community.
Yeah.
I want to build a following, and I feel that to build a following with today content becoming overloaded and so many more people making it, the content production, editing, the content writing has to be good. So that's where I'm exploring. I'm exploring 3 things actually. Number 1 is the idea can be mine, but I need someone to write the script in a crisp manner because my script is 1 bullet point and I just say whatever I feel like.
Yeah.
The second is I record, but I have no sense of lighting, camera, etc. I'm very confident in front of the camera, so that's not a problem. But I record in sunlight. That's all I do, right? So looking for someone who can guide me on production and editing.
Yeah.
And the third thing is posting. So I run a team, and we have 2 social media guys who run the company's page. So that they'll take care of.
Yeah.
But the first 2 aspects is what I'm looking for help with, and then the third aspect is creating a feedback loop of someone who is in this space, who is following my life to a certain extent, like an hour a week or something, or an hour every 2 weeks, who can tell me, oh, you know what, this could be interesting. Why don't you do this? Like you just,
yeah.
because I'm living in an echo chamber right now where whatever I think is interesting, I upload it. So
Yeah.
long answer, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, that's amazing. And you know what? You don't even have to worry about it too much because you are a person who's on the spot, you know how to go. Like you said, things which are actually very difficult to scale, which is being super confident on camera and which is being extremely articulate, and everything, every minute you say is something super valuable, right? Like you gotta make content and you gotta build your personal brand. I studied Gary like anything, and I also studied Ankur a lot, and both of these guys laid out their content strategies on the internet for free. I'm going to forward those 2 articles to you. But something I understood was that it was not by luck that Gary grew through millions of followers or Ankur grew through millions of followers. It was a very proven strategy on content making and content distribution. You being a super busy person, you don't need to create 15 different pieces of content. You need to create 1 pillar piece of content, and that 1 pillar piece of content gets distributed. That's when you need someone to do post-production. Like our podcast today, I can take out 12 clips from this one podcast and you're set. That is not something you need to worry about. From what you said, I can take out a LinkedIn quote, I can take out a tweet, I can take out Instagram clips when we're talking about culture, I can take out business clips when we're talking about, I can take out business clips when you want to post something on LinkedIn and stuff. So what you need is, you do need a team. I would love to help you with strategy because that is where I specialize as to how to minimize your time and maximize your output. What you can do is you can look for interns, copywriters, and video editors, because that is something that is very, very time consuming. And I we can talk about how you wanna we can work together on this, but I would love to
For sure.
love to grow your personal brand. And if people would love to work with you. You can also do a barter system, like mentorship, or how Ankur did it. I think he was paying like, he had some interns who he was paying a little bit of a stipend, and he was giving every week they would have a 1 hour session with him, and people would kill to have a 1 hour session with you, right? Or he was paying for their like therapy or mental health, or like if they wanted to do a course, like investing into them and stuff. So very strategically you can lay out how you can have a lot of output from this. So I think that is something you should definitely do.
For sure. So I think this is going to be a conversation we keep having. And Devika, I don't know how you freelance, but if you have some kind of a portfolio or any kind of material that you could send me,
yeah.
I would love to explore if we can work together, because the goal is there's two possible goals I see right now, and the idea is ever evolving, it's never complete, right?
Yeah.
But one is that if we are building a full-fledged content system, so why not do something like a Beer Biceps did with the Viraj Seth, right? Wherein they created Monk Entertainment. Because from a funding aspect or like a space aspect, I'm all set. I don't mind investing in a team, in we have a co-working space, so the space is set,
yeah.
Digital presence, etc. The time aspect is where it's a little sticky right now, because we're building businesses, and Regaal Resources is actually going for an IPO in the next 12 months. So it's a very busy time for that. Or the second part is simply working with someone as a freelancer or whatnot. And I'm very open to both. So if any of them sounds worth your time, exciting, would love to discuss more and see how we can scale things up, because from a creator level, I am no one right now. But
you keep saying that you're doing amazing things in life. Please don't say you're no one.
So from a macro perspective, but I definitely think if for 1 year I create consistently, I can make a dent. Just sort of need to increase the feedback loop and the consistency process, because what I've done so far is posted when I feel like it, and when I'm busy, I'll not post, which is not good for the algorithm or whatnot. So that's something that I'm sure we can work on.
Both Ankur and Gary are super busy people, so what they do is they take you have Friday or Saturday, right? They would dedicate one day where they're shooting for 3 hours straight, and those 3 hours is something that pans out for a week, and that is something you don't have to worry about. The people who are working with you, they will end up producing different posts for different social media platforms and stuff. So you probably just need to dedicate 3 hours in a week, and you're set for an entire week, and that is where the strategy and the distribution of content plays out. And like you said, one can have a weekly sit down of what's relevant in culture, your thoughts about Elon Musk buying Twitter, or your thoughts about on an NFT project or something like that. Those are things that can help you get your viral clicks and so on and so forth. And LinkedIn and Reels both have incredible engagement, and LinkedIn is working like 2012 Facebook, right? It has an amazing reach.
Yes.
Things can really go viral, and it's being really seen. So both of them have amazing algorithms, and you have a lot of important things to say, and I feel like people would really, really benefit from it. So I think it's an incredible idea for you to invest in, building out your personal brand through content.
That's very kind of you. It definitely motivates and inspires me to keep going. And looking forward to have more such conversations and even help each other grow, right? Because I'm sure you have your own stuff that you have planned in time to come. And if I can ever support from that as a side, cheerleader, or even in any other capacity, always happy to do that. And on a second perspective is in terms of working with people, I'm talking to people all the time. I can share some people who are working in the content space and doing this afternoon, right? I invested in this guy's company. He was the deal lead. His name is Saksham Mendirata. So he's running this product studio called Lights Out Studio from Bangalore. And they just got featured on Your Story. And I believe he's a guy I got to know recently, but we've had multiple conversations around it. He's a cool guy, likes Formula One, very humble, totally my kind of a guy. Yeah. So I told him that I need help, and I'm trying to outsource. So he told me that, this guy does stuff for Raj Shamani, the famous creator. So I need to talk to him. So I spoke to him today in the evening, and he gave me an understanding of how Raj Shamani breaks down his content. Yeah. So a lot of people who I meet, I feel that I'm also trying to connect people who can synergistically help each other. Yeah. So if you see something on my connection list people commenting, etc., who I can connect you with. Always open to those connections as well.
I appreciate that. I have been in the content space. I love content. It's something I've been in this space for. But I'm really looking at tech, finance, and business opportunities. These are the areas I want to get in. Even the companies I've been applying for are a lot of Web3 companies. I literally know people at Vayner NFT, which is Gary's, Vayner X's
Yeah,
wing,
yeah.
which is Vayner NFT. I interviewed the president, which is Avery Akineni. And just because of the visa sponsorship thing came into play, I was not able to get in. So I took a huge L on my part. But these are places where I want to, this is where I see my career going. I love content. I know how to leverage it to get my foot in the door and things like that. But want to get into tech, into finance, maybe hedge fund, these kind of things I'm deeply interested in. So I would love to forward you my resume, and maybe you can, just
Yeah, for
direct
sure.
me.
Happy to push it forward. One question that I have is like I worked in top tier finance companies and I have friends working in Web3 startups, building Web3 startups. I recently reached out to Utsaf Somani from AngelList India, who is like he's an early investor in CoinDCX and a couple other really big companies.
Yeah.
So question for you is, how are you going about it? Like you have the pod going for you, which is awesome. How many guests have you had so far?
I've had 45 guests.
So that's a serious podcast then. Like it's not a hobby anymore. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And what else are you doing in this space that is giving you that foot in the door?
So just now I'm like, I never really got into the Indian space so much. Like I wanted to get my foot in the door at Vayner Media. I interviewed from the employees to the interns. I got the recruiter. The recruiter was just helping me, write my CV to send it to, like, I really like know how to get my way in there, because that is something I leveraged my way back in. With Dana, I'm still working with Unblocked, but I'm working as a freelancer. But because we're not doing the fundraising things, I have a lot of hours on me, which I can definitely dedicate to a full-time job. I'm also doing an NFT consultations and investing on the side. And I know, like, I have a knack for finance, because the first job I got, I was making 15,000 rupees and I thought I deserved so much more. So instead of asking her for
Nice.
more because it was COVID, I started ferociously reading Forbes Asia. And I got really lucky because that month they had released this list of best under a billion companies, and there were 100 companies which were just under $1 billion. And so my, logic, I thought if they when they do end up crossing that billion, the valuation would increase and therefore the share prices would increase. So I converted that 15, I saved some money, so I converted about 35,000 into 85,000. I took that 85,000 and that's how I got into NFTs. And I have gotten some amazing returns. And I have two very, very successful projects. One of them is sitting at like almost 6 lakh. The other one is sitting at, 2.5, which I hope to increase a lot more. So I've never gone into like finance, like
Amazing.
worked for a firm or did a degree, but I know I'm very quick learner and stuff like that. And I'm extremely curious and competitive. So that's why I feel like I have a huge knack for like finance. But, I want to create that
You
recurring
know,
income instead of just having that one big thing.
for sure. And it's amazing to see what you've done. And as much as experiences and like degrees are great, they're also very overrated, because what you did is much more valuable in terms of a learning or degree perspective, right? It's experiential learning or
Yeah.
learning by doing. Three things I might suggest really quick is, one is like I recently connected with this guy called Bucks something, and he was writing about cryptos online, crypto web 3.0, NFTs, etc.
Right.
And he built a strong following online, and then he created that following into a WhatsApp group, multiple WhatsApp groups, where he would invite discussions, and some top tier people came in that because I saw them introduce themselves. So I was like, wow, this guy is really building a solid community. So that's
Yeah.
one thing to explore, that writing and then converting that to a Discord server or whatnot. Second is also, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine who was at I am Kozhikode and then worked at a top tier consulting firm and just got a job in Singapore, but working from India, getting paid in Singapore dollars at a top tier like crypto startup.
Yeah.
They're looking at as well. They're fundraising aggressively right now. He was the 20th hire or something. So in case that goes somewhere, that would be amazing. And I'll keep in mind if I can share other contacts who might work with you and in a similar space. But I think you're doing awesome things, and it's only time to come that I'm sure I'll be seeing your names in Forbes Asia and more. So looking forward to that.
I appreciate you. It's very, very kind. I'll also forward you some of my content samples and stuff. And whenever you're free, I would love to hop on a call with you to just discuss. I can go over with Gary's and Ankur's content strategy, so you can think how you can think about building your team, when you want to.
For sure, I'll definitely follow up with you on that, and maybe next week whenever you're available, we can have a call and we can get those things going. That's very kind of you to offer. Thank you so much.
Of course, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And one of the last questions I want to ask you is, what would your advice be for young people who are just figuring out life?
Do more, be kind, live mindfully, get away from your phone, sleep 8 hours, and enjoy nature. That's my 60 of advice.
Thank you so much, Karan. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm not just saying it, I mean it.